Okay, so I asked you while you were working on this to listen to your brain about the techniques that it was telling you to either get it started in the beginning, or especially when you're going back and you're trying to fix things. What is your brain telling you to make things more accurate? So there are several techniques that you could use. The first is that, remember when we drew the first half, I told you that I wanted you to name everything as you drew it because that's the left side of the brain. But when I'm working on the right side, I'm not naming the parts to myself. If you could get inside of my head, this is what you would hear. How long is this line compared to this line? What is this curve like compared to this curve? What's this distance compared to this distance? How much space is here in between here? What's this angle like? So it's all more, my brain is talking about spatial relationships and distances and sizes and relationships back and forth than it is naming anything as I'm completing the second side. You could have shifted your focus. So instead of focusing on this part here and comparing it to that part there, you could focus on this part here, or back and forth. A lot of times if you're having a hard time getting a curve or an angle right, it can really help to shift your focus and pay attention to the opposite one that you weren't focusing on. Using these little grid lines. So in the beginning, the reason I had this little tick mark down the middle, and I forgot to say this, was that you didn't want any part of your first profile to go past the middle. So that's what that was for. But then as I was getting ready to draw my second face, I used these little tick marks. So where is the nose compared to the nose? Where's the middle of the mouth compared to the middle of the mouth? Where's the chin compared to the chin? And throughout the years, I oftentimes see people do this before I even mention it, but I've never seen anyone do it like this. So when we're drawing, a good artist, they're always looking at what they're drawing and they're comparing it back to their drawing of that object, and they're always scanning both vertically and horizontally to see where does one thing in the object that they're looking at compare to something else in the object that they're looking at, and then is that the same in their drawing. When I started to work on my second face, I started at the top and I worked my way down, and then I came down to the nose and I worked my way up, and then I worked down a little bit, and then I came down to the bottom. I was kind of like skipping all over the place, where when we did this side, remember I told you to start at the top and just work your way all the way down without going back and changing anything. So skipping around is something that the right side of the brain is good at. It can start in the middle and then go back to the beginning, and kind of like as it's fixing things, jump around. Where the left side of the brain likes to start at the beginning and just work its way through to the finish. And then the other thing that you could have done, and I hope that this is a technique that you'll avoid, is you could have just been like, well, this is stupid, who cares? And I'm just gonna draw it however I want. So after you finish this one, we're going to be doing two of these today, and the second one is going to be a face again, but this time we want to try and make it as crazy as possible. So I'm going to do the profile of a witch. This is her hat, this is her head, she has a big wart on her head, here's her eye socket, her nose, big juicy pimple on the end of her nose. She's got sharp teeth for eating little kids. Her chin, another big wart, and her neck. So again, everything's nameable. I started at the top, I worked my way straight down. Everything I did was still left side of the brain activity, but now I have given myself something that is much more complicated to try and replicate on the other side. So go ahead and try some of those techniques. If you can, I'd like you to try each of those techniques that I talked about. Oh, one technique I forgot to mention was if you're on an area where you're really struggling, you keep drawing it and you keep getting it wrong, A great technique is to take your paper and turn it sideways, or take your paper and actually turn it upside down. A lot of times that can help you see that angle or that shape or that size that you're getting wrong more correctly if you look at it from a new perspective. So try all of those techniques and try and complete a symmetrical, more complicated vase face.